As you can see, the sign on that little poster, little image on the PowerPoint slide, it says volunteers needed. Volunteers needed. And I do have a question. I would like you to raise your hand if your church has a full-time paid youth pastor. Full-time paid youth pastor. So I would say that maybe 2% of the population here, that would be you. Raise your hand if your church has a part-time paid youth pastor. Now this is part-time. Okay, thank you. Raise your hand if your church, you know, their focus, they could only afford volunteers pretty much. It's all about volunteers. Raise your hand for our lay volunteers, okay? So I asked this question because this is the reality of what's happening, and not because of just budget in our churches, but really this is the reality of our region of New England. As we know, a lot of our churches are declining in numbers. A lot of what's happening is that, again, budgets do not allow for there to be an associate assistant, let alone a youth pastor or a children's pastor. So we are really much focused on really finding and discipling and mentoring and training our lay individuals in doing this work, which is not a big deal, nor is it a problem, because that's what God has called us to do. So I want us to look at the scripture as we see Paul reminding us. The gifts he gave were that some would be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until all of us come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to maturity, to the measure of the full stature of Christ. And I highlighted and I underlined to equip. To equip. And that is one of our many commandments, our commission, to equip, to disciple, to do this work. Whether you are a staff member, lay leader, or faithful volunteer, we all have a mandate to equip the body of Christ. Now, I want to share some things that may cause a little ouch right now. Please bear with me, and I apologize, this is not to offend anyone, but this is also the realities of what we're seeing. We have seen way too much men and women assigned to roles within the church with no direction. I have always wondered, would a church hire a pastor who did not know how to preach, who did not know how to counsel, or who did not know how to lead? Many churches today place folks who have, quote unquote, the potential to work with our children and youth, but they are not trained. They are not trained. And I say children and youth because we're just speaking about our youth right now, but I bet you if we were to have a session on children, it would pretty much be on the same level. Our focus on children's ministry in many churches need to be a little bit, we need to review this area much more. So here we are today, and the focus of this session is how can we attract volunteers? But not only attract volunteers, but make sure that they stay with us. Make sure that they stay. I believe yesterday, Reverend Skip shared that, you know, many youth pastors are not around enough to even see a light bulb, to even change a light bulb. You know, the retention rate of youth pastors are just constantly changing. There's no consistency or sustainability. So we want to attract people who can stay, who are focused, who are committed. We want to attract people who may be able in their time with us discover their calling, their purpose. I can say that I discovered my call and my purpose to ministry working with children and youth. It was there where I learned that I could share my story, that I could teach Bible study. I was given the opportunity to do that. So we want to attract these type of people to work with us, but to stay with us. So how do we do this? How do we do this? First, we need to ask ourselves this question. What does our youth ministry look like? And I believe we've had the time throughout the course of these last 2 evenings to speak about mission, about vision, the climate of our churches, our ministries, right? So who are the folks that we're working with? What does our youth ministry look like? What does it look like? Who are the participants? Who are these youth? I know in my church, we serve a very diverse youth. So for example, being that our church is trilingual, it is important that we have volunteers that can speak in Spanish, that can speak to the parents, that can share possibly. I know in my church, our youth leaders, I know I walk through the schools, public school district, walking around, and I have to serve as advocate, as social worker sometimes, having to sit down and translate for parents. That's my reality in the community which I serve in. So it's important that we understand context, that we understand who we are as a church, who we're serving, what are the needs. Because we can't volunteer just to volunteer anymore. What does your current church ministry program look like? Are you just a church that serves a Sunday morning Bible study? Do you meet weekly? Do you have small groups Bible studies? Is it a Friday night gathering? Do you meet once a month? So really understanding and assessing what that looks like in your context. What is your church's youth ministry's vision and mission? And we talked about that yesterday. What is the vision and mission? And again, what's the context? Is it urban? Is it rural? Is it, suburban? What have you? Figuring out what it is and who are the young people that we're serving. So here are some questions that I've asked, and you will receive all this so that you could begin to think and really reflect on this. Now, assessing volunteer opportunities, the needs. How many volunteers would it take to make your ministry soar? So after you have gotten to the place of understanding the following, who are we? What are we about? What are the needs? What are the areas that we are talking about? For example, if you are in need of having a volunteer work with media, with worship, with small groups, really thinking about your vision of a youth ministry, this is important. It will allow you to focus on the need and the amount of people that you need to make this work. What type of volunteers are needed in terms of various roles? Again, who are they? And how do we attract them? How do we attract our volunteers? I have a question, if anyone could. How have you attracted volunteers in your church? Anyone? Yes, we may need the mic, okay.
You have it up there, just one-on-one asks. I get the most yeses when I look someone in the eye and say, I'm doing such and such. Can you help specifically do such and such? Okay, so ask. And I have here one-on-one contact, invite, flyer. A flyer is important, obviously utilizing social media, video announcements. We're working with young people who are extremely talented and gifted with this area, involving them in this process. How are they going to be a part of this selection possibly? Social media, having an open house. A lot of times I've learned that there are a lot of adults who want to serve in ministry, but they don't know about the ministry. Okay, they may just see the youth on Sunday mornings, Sunday afternoons, but they don't know what really takes place. They don't know what's happening in that setting. So encouraging them to visit, to take the time to join and be a part of what's happening, because it's more than just let me sign up for this to serve. And I want to make it clear, there are two types of volunteers. There's the volunteers that can drive your youth around, but there's also the volunteers that we need them as leaders to be there and present at all times possibly, okay? So again, figuring out what are the needs, Here we have a sample of a flyer of a church in Chicago. Again, something that was developed by our youth and very youthful, very attractive, some reflective questions are listed and the context. So this could be something that you can develop, provide it to your media team at your church, put this on Facebook, Twitter, whatever works, but it's a way to really engage the church in understanding the need of having more men and women work in this area.
Very important. So now that you have listed your needs, your mission and vision, now you need to develop a job description. Okay, a job description for each role, and every role may be different, from media team, small groups, it could be the person working with the mentoring program, whatever it is at your church. It's important that we begin, or that you continue to develop a job description for these areas. So for example, the title of that position, ministry mission statement. Okay, the ministry mission statement is important. That way they know what they're walking into. Mission statement for the specific role. For example, a small group leader challenges high school students to grow closer to God, okay? Job essentials. You need someone that could lead, that could develop, work together with teams. They're gifted areas, you know. Some folks are gifted in singing and worship and teaching, etc. Support system, who will be working with them. A lot of times, perhaps, I know in my church, when we're looking for volunteers to serve in children's ministry, not a lot of people want to do that. Again, maybe they feel like, oh my gosh, we're going to be there alone with all these kids. So being clear and informing them that no, you will not be alone. You will have a group of folks who will work with you and who will serve with you. Weekly responsibilities, very important. You know, to do this work and to have a strong group, especially with our young people today, they want to make sure that they could trust folks, right? So we want sustainability, we want there to be consistency, and if we're not honest with those who are volunteering from the beginning and letting them know, listen, we need you there every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And if they cannot be there but one Wednesday a month, then okay, we may need you to do something else, but I'm not going to assign you to be a small group leader if you're not going to be here 3 Thursdays or Wednesdays of the month. So making sure that there is a clear vision, number one, for your ministry, but that they are aware of what their role is and what's expected from them, okay? Other responsibilities, for example, perhaps in some churches, leaders must attend prayer, fasting and prayer in the Saturday mornings once a month. It may mean that they need to participate in a discipleship class. You know, I know in my church, our leaders are expected to also receive. You can't give if you don't have, you know, so it's not about just giving, making sure that they're also being fed. So obviously they will need to be a part of some discipleship class if they're serving in this capacity. So making sure that that's also listed in the job description and that they're not surprised come 2 weeks that they're in already serving. And obviously the leadership and discipleship opportunities that a church may offer this individual so that they know that the church is also very supportive in their development. It is important to develop an application, okay? This is not just, you know, we need you and we want you to come, but also develop an application, something that will allow there to be accountability. Obviously, the identification basics of name, address, we could list that there, qualification, a job description, ministry experience. We want to know, do they have experience? Again, we talked about, you know, will we just hire anyone to work with our adults at the church? You know, would we? You know, so we also want folks that maybe they don't have a lot of experience with youth, but they may have something to share. And if not, we'll teach them. We want someone that can obviously take the time to reflect, and if it's even in an application, their church involvement, their statement of faith, which is important. We are a church youth group, not a social youth group in the community. Our young people have enough organizations outside that they could participate in. But very important that our young people can also have individuals who can encourage them, who can lead them to Christ daily, even through a text message, even sending them a scripture verse, praying with them. You know, I remember taking the course here at the Divinity School on youth ministry, and it was so shocking to me, but also I wasn't really surprised in knowing that there are some youth pastors in some churches that are scared to pray. You know, pray out loud or pray with our young people like that. You know, this is what we do. So really understanding the need for that. So able to express one's faith is important. References. Why is references important in this work? Because we can't just have anyone and everyone. The same is true with background checks, and in a couple of minutes, Pastor King is going to come and talk more about that, but like the background check is very important. You know, what does it mean to really be a church that is under a safe church model in protecting our youth and our children? A church leaders covenant, we've been speaking about covenant, but there are various churches who also have developed a covenant for all of their ministries, so including that in the application where it's like not a contract, but it's a covenant where they could sign off and understand that this is something that we take serious. And an interview, taking the time to get to know these individuals who want to work. And even if this person wants to drive a van or be there serving food, very important that we take the time to get to know them and interview them. And also, you know, this is an opportunity for them to see whether or not they do want to be committed to do this work. I think that one thing I've learned is that when we're looking at volunteers, we don't need to expect to select someone to come in and be the next youth pastor. That may not be their reality. It may be that we're asking someone to be with us for a year, 6 months. And therefore, there should be an opportunity for review, an opportunity for whoever is supervising to sit down and see how they're doing and maybe see, whether or not they want to continue on with this role as youth leader or as a volunteer youth leader at the church. So how do we plug in our volunteers? Obviously, we could, everything that I shared in terms of mission vision, preparing a clear job description and also application process. But once you select them, it's important that you also introduce them to the church. Introduce who these individuals are. This could be from, having a senior pastor do that, social media, what have you, but it's important that our parents know who our new leaders are. Develop a volunteer staff orientation process. Very important to do that, where they could learn and understand the importance of their assigned role as you cast vision together and begin to think of the roles of what it means to serve this generation. Involve them, training them, supporting them, encouraging them, exciting them, empowering them. These are volunteers, so I cannot expect my volunteers to offer the same amount of time that I give, because guess what? These folks are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They have families, they have children, so really seeing how they are doing. If they're not doing that well one day, just, I believe that a lot of the work is pastoring our volunteers as well. Developing them, but not only developing them, but offering them opportunities where they can be trained and bringing them to opportunities and resources like these. And appreciate and acknowledge them. Getting to know what is their love language. What is it that helps them to understand that they are loved in this atmosphere. Again, we want to make sure that they could stay with us, because the more that we see our youth, the more retention we have in terms of seeing our leaders present and sustained in those spaces, the stronger and more effective they can become. So this is very important that we could plug them in from the start. So training our volunteers. This is never ending. I'm still being trained. I don't know it all, and I don't hope to know it all. So it's important that, in your time that you select days, and as we shared earlier, plan your year in advance. Select days where people are not surprised that they are needed to be here next Saturday or what have you. So 2 to 3 a year, all-day retreats, weekends, whatever works for you. Meet monthly for check-ins, one-on-ones. In-services are important, where they can continue to have developmental opportunities. And attend, as we mentioned, local and national conferences where they can grow and partner and work together. I know in New London, we have a network where local churches work together and they support each other. So therefore, on a Friday or whatever, once a month or whatever activities happen, and we support each other when we can, and it allows our young people who attend schools together to work together and worship together, which is very important. So at this moment, I'm going to ask Pastor King to come, because when we talk about application, when we talk about volunteering and attracting and recruiting people, we also want to introduce them to our safe church practices. We are working with youth and children, so it's very important that we understand that there are policies and there are laws that we need to abide.
All right, thank you so much. This is near and dear to my heart. Some of you may know that I was a JAG officer and served as a defense attorney, and I actually defended pedophiles, and one of the reasons why I became a prosecutor, because it was a hard job for me. And that's a true story. So I've now defended and prosecuted pedophiles, and all of us need to take it serious. We have implemented, not fully, a process at Christian Tabernacle Baptist Church. I've included this. Some of even our own members are not aware, but 3 years ago, Troy Savage, who is a YDS grad, he started working on our process and procedures within the Christian Tabernacle Baptist Church family. And so what you have on your table is a letter first for all of our youth volunteers. Again, we have not fully implemented all of this, but the letter simply puts all of our volunteers on notice that they are to treat the children that come under their care with great care. And I'll just read that first letter for you. We are excited that you are interested in volunteering with the youth of Christian Tabernacle Baptist Church. We believe that you will have the opportunity to minister to youth, helping them grow in their faith as you grow in your own faith. The Lord Jesus said, "Let the children come to me. Do not hinder them, for such belongs to the kingdom of God." We strive to play a part in helping our children and our youth discover Christ. And then we go on to talk about what they would have to do to become a volunteer within the Christian Tabernacle Baptist Church family. That includes going through a background check. One of the things, reasons why it has not been fully implemented, a lot of our volunteers have been around for a long time, and we think we know 90% of the folks who work with youth, but I would suggest that you really need to do this with everyone, because you may think you know someone, but when you run a background check, you realize there was something there that should give you pause. The second document that you have, and all of this is modeled after American Baptist Church, which we are affiliated with. What Allison emailed to all of you was the American Baptist Church packet that will outline in greater detail a safe church policy and procedure. So these documents are modeled after the American Baptist recommended approach to safe churches. So one of the things that you need to do, again, is the background check. As Araceli said, I think a job description to let everyone know what the expectations will be for the positions. And the third document you have at your table is the guideline for workers. And I'm going to read that one a little bit to give you a flavor of the tone that we're trying to set when it comes to Safe Church. In order to be faithful, is everyone looking at the same document? Amen. In order to be faithful in responding to the biblical mandate to let the children come, to provide the highest quality and safest possible program for the children and youth, and to protect those persons working with children and youth, we follow the guidelines below. 1, we will respect children and youth with both our actions and our words. We will not use abusive or derogatory language or actions. And if you work with youth long enough, I know all of us can lose lose our tempers, but we have to make sure that our children are being treated with respect. If you are a senior pastor, it's part of our job to counsel those who are screaming and yelling and doing all kind of things with our youth. They love them, but there is a proper approach, and we have to make sure that we maintain the dignity of our youth. 2, we will touch children and youth only in appropriate ways and places, never against a child's or a youth's will, unless in the case of clear and present danger of the child or the youth or a child or youth, never causing a child or youth discomfort, never when it would have effect of overstimulating a child or a youth, never in a place on a child's or a youth's body that could be covered by a bathing suit. 3, we will under no circumstances hit a child or a youth. When I grew up in the 80s, that would not have been there. We got snatched up and hit all the time, but certainly we don't want to do that today. 4, when we encounter a particular difficult child or youth situation, we will seek assistance. And we all run into youth who refuse to respect authority. We do have a chain of command, from the youth minister to the deacons, the trustees, and then it may come before me, and I may have to ask that child the parent, to keep the child home for a week or so, but hopefully it will not come to that. 5, doors without windows will be left open when on one-on-one sessions with children and youth are taking place. Our church is fairly remodeled, and one of the things that we did in this regard is installed windows in the doors, so everyone can always look in when we're counseling or having Sunday school class and the like. If we have a plan to take children or youth off church property, we get proper permission. When there's an emergency, in the medical context, we call 911 and then call the parents. And if we suspect that a child at Christian Tabernacle has been subjected to child abuse, we report that incident is reported to me and the proper legal authorities. And so that's kind of our outline. I would direct you to the email from American Baptist that really details in a more comprehensive way some of the things that you can do to safeguard the youth in your church. Did you want to add?
And I believe that in various churches and denominations there are different models, but again, I have seen in my work that folks are really attracted to a process. It's not just like, we need you to sign up after church. They really want to see that, once we have a packet, a process, they understand that this is not, as I will call the Mickey Mouse Club, that this is a youth ministry that really is focused on doing things with excellence, focused on really giving the best for our young people, even if it's that we need to do background checks, very important. And that's what folks are looking for nowadays. They want to be a part of something that will allow them to grow, but also be a part of a community that understands the seriousness of a safe church practice.
The other thing you'll find in the American Baptist piece that was emailed to you are disqualifying guidelines, and I want to go through a few of them. The first one is someone refuses to consent to the personal criminal background. I have had youth workers say to me, if you require a background, I'm going to quit. Well, you know what? Then you have to quit. And so, so don't be intimidated when people push back, and they will push back. One of the things that, try not to get too personal in our business, but one of the things that people can be concerned about is who sees the information, and that's a legitimate concern. And so the process with respect to Christian Tabernacle would be, I would be the only one that would see it. So you do have to put in a process that it remains confidential. As much as we want to believe in godly people, if some wrong information gets out, then it can be a problem. The second disqualifying factor is the person if they're convicted of a crime of child abuse, sexual assault, child neglect, murder, voluntary manslaughter, felony assault, arson, robbery. It's really the likely, the usual serious offenses. So we would not disqualify someone for prior, selling drugs or use of drugs, but when the conviction puts our children in harm's way, then obviously it would disqualify someone from working with our youth. Another disqualifying factor have they been convicted of a combination of misdemeanor assaults, or battery, misdemeanor theft. I don't know if I would, theft would bother me so much, but this is American Baptist guidelines. They also have you been convicted twice for DUI. Now, I actually think that's a serious matter. If they're going on a trip with youth and they're driving the van, this could be an issue. So I would agree in that regard.
Can I also say, and also being mindful of the use of social media. We can use social media. I love social media, but really understanding the power that social media has. And we don't even need to go into it, because we see that even in our job, and we watch it constantly on the news, how many people have been fired, let go due to things that they post on social media. So it's important that integrity is also being shared and delivered, and post in one's postings, pictures that they have, and also language being used in social media. So very important, and that information may not be in a lot of these documents, because this is something that's happening now, and some of these documents have not been updated. We have a hand.
Just a point. One of the things that I've seen in several congregations across denominations is if the staff has all completed Safe Church training in whatever formation it takes, there is a sign
Yes.
near the classrooms, in the entryway to the church, and as a comfort and as a point of information for families that might be new to the congregation especially, that, hey, by the way, we take this pretty seriously.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Joyce has worked with American Baptist pretty extensively, and so one of the things that we do is periodically have trainings for Safe Church, but that's something that you should do for all of the staff as well.
I will also encourage our churches to also contact DCF, the Department of Children and Families, where they can send also someone to train all of your staff members in what it means to be a mandate reporter. They do this for free. They do it in multiple languages. I know they've come and have shared sessions on that, because it's so important in the world that we live in today that our leaders are trained and understand what that means in serving our children and our youth. So that's also a free resource, and it's also an opportunity for your church to connect with our state, and what's happening, and providing us with a lot, and not only on that end, but there are also other resources that they can provide us in our church communities.
That's great. Yeah. Other recommendations or other things that churches are doing that you want to share? I think that was an excellent one. Are there other recommendations or other, policies that your church?
In Massachusetts, we can do queries for free online. So it's worth probably looking into what the state does for religious organizations and nonprofits. Because for me, it's super easy. I log on, type in the information, 5 minutes later, the query comes back. So look into discounted queries. And
so that's a background?
Query is like, I don't know what it's, CORI, the criminal background check. And I think it's just a state, it's just the state records.
Oh, yeah.
But it's worth looking into different discounts that you can get for being a nonprofit.
Great.
That's a good point.
Last year, I was part of a colloquium that they held in New York, and we have the benefit right here in Connecticut of having what they call the Religious Institute in Westport, Connecticut. And last year, I think they had like 80, when we sat down, we had like 80 different actions that a church can implement to try and create a safe church environment, and they dwindle them down to, or they merge them more down to 20. If you go to religionsinstitute.org, they have these 20, and I think they're trying to do something nationally with the major denominations to get churches certified to be sexually safe churches if they follow these 20 points that they implement in the churches, which is, I think, is great.
Oh, that is great.
This is such an important subject. We just cannot let youth leaders abuse the relationship with children. And here's the point I want to make as clearly as I possibly can. Of course there are ill people and predators and people who should never come near children. That's not most of the people that are going to be in your church, and it's not most of the people who get in trouble. What causes trouble is when people think that I would never make a mistake like this. I would never be attracted to a person in the youth group. I'm not at risk. Therefore, I can be very close and relational with these young people because there's no problem. I would never do a wrong thing. But we're pretty complex beings. God did not create a 22-year-old man and make it so he could not be attracted to an 18-year-old high school girl. And he did not create an 18-year-old high school girl with some magic divider that she could not be attracted to a 22-year-old man, or a 22-year-old woman and an 18-year-old man. So what we have to understand with our training is this is not a training we're giving to bad people who do bad things. We're giving training to human beings who need to understand that if you have a slope like this, you have to draw the line up here. It's too late to draw the line down there. So it isn't just about don't do the bad thing when you're down here. Don't be in the situation. Don't be in the car together. Don't be alone together. Don't be in a room together, because we're complicated folks, right? So we have to drive this line upstream to where it seems unnatural sometimes. You mean I can't even sit in the room and talk to them? No, you cannot. You mean I can't even give them a ride home? No, you cannot. Draw the line high on the slope so that they don't get in trouble down the slope, notwithstanding their good intentions, all right?